Hey guys, what is up? Kid here of Burn One, Shadowverse Evolved channel, as always, bringing you another deck profile, this time on Kuon Rune for Paragons of the Colosseum. This is one of the top meta decks of the format, one that I think is kind of like, you must be this tall to be able to ride into the tier 1 meta of decks. So if you can't keep up with Kuon, then you're probably not good enough for the meta. I know a lot of people have been afraid of this deck. A lot of people have been excited for this deck, and this deck is, a meta powerhouse for like the next 3 sets or so. So it's worth investing in. So let's just jump into the deck itself here. All right, so this is the deck itself. It's similar game plan as before, like in set 1 and so forth. In any D-shift type of deck, we're just playing spells, trying to fill up our grave and get to the D-shift turn to be able to OTK our opponent essentially. But we have a new powerhouse Kuon here that gives us better reach for the end game. We don't need as many cards essentially to kind of close out some of our games as long as we get our opponent down to like 12 or 14 health before we do the D-shift turn. And even then, a lot of times you can still OTK your opponent from like 20 life total if you have multiple Kuons in hand. So let's get into the deck breakdown itself. We play one of Angelic Snipe. It doesn't really matter what you do here because honestly we're just playing this one of to make it 4 of in the deck. We want to have this control game plan early. Anytime our opponent plays something, we want to be able to remove it so we can get to our later turns, as well as fill up obviously our grave to hit that threshold for D-shift, and as well as Kuon. I'll just jump to Lamplet Training, of which would be, like I said, you can have any number back and forth. I think as long as you have 4 1-drop removals, you're good to go. This is just basically another Angelic Snipe for the deck. 3 of Insights. Insight solid card means essentially it's a cycle card that also fills up your grave a little bit because we need those spells in grave to like pop off with Kuon and everything in the late turns. That's the main game plan here. Traditional Sorcerer is a really powerful mid-game card. You kind of only want to really play this when you have the 7 spells or Omyoji cards in your cemetery to get the fanfare effect going. It provides you with a ward that also draws drops on death, as well as heals you 2 on play, which is really big to help get you there. It's a 1/4 as well, so if you do decide to play this on turn 2 or something, it's like kind of hard to remove. You can get in for a poke here or there, though ideally you want to be playing this card to maximize the value of the healing, plus getting the extra Paper Shikigami, which is really important for the deck because these Shikigami followers help you fill up your cemetery way quicker to be able to get to the turns to pop off with Kuon. Playing 2 Chain of Calling. This is a really important card because a lot of times we have ways to search out D-shift or get D-shift in our hand naturally, but Kuon is like the way we really finish games. And even on turns where we don't want to D-shift, but Kuon is like a really cheap cost card to play on the board, playing it on the board is still good. So having Chain of Calling be able to help get to your Kuons when you need them, because being able to dig 5 is really important sometimes, as well as Spell Chain 10. This will recover 1, which does come up occasionally, not too often, but a lot of times when you get to like turns 8 or so, having this extra recover 1 play point can help you find the extra Kuon to be able to double Kuon and then still have 7 play points afterwards to do the D-shift turn to OTK your opponent. This is why Chain of Calling is so important, because without Kuon, D-shift is nothing, and without D-shift, Kuon is nothing. But we have other ways to find D-shift easily, but we don't have easy ways to find Kuon other than naturally drawing it or using Chain of Calling. Rhyme Wind is a 1-of. We can just get rid of some of these pesky stuff going on. You hit Spell Chain 10, you can deny them a draw, which is kind of nice occasionally, but it's just kind of hard removal to just tell a card to go away, essentially. This is one of the ways you could answer, for example, Fairy Dragon if you really wanted to, but it's in here as a 1-of. You kind of figure out whether you want more than 1 or not. Personally, I've been happy as a 1-of, because if I need to replay it, Merlin's there in the deck for it. Shikigami Summons, another really powerful card. This is another card you want to wait till the mid game usually to get the max value of this, but sometimes just playing this on curve is just as good, because at the end of the day, getting a Paper Shikigami token, a 2/2 follower on the board that lets you draw drop with the last word effect is really important in fueling your grave as fast as possible. We are basically a control-y deck until we hit our OTK turn, so obviously 3 of Surefire Bullet. This gets rid of a lot of annoying things around. We maximize the fact that we have 3 of this, means it's quite annoying for a lot of our opponents who have followers that evolve and have 4 health just pop away. You'll be seeing a lot of those, as always. If you've been playing for a while, you know how strong Surefire Bullet is. 12 Light, we have a lot of draw drops because of the Shikigamis that we are summoning all the time. So Trail of Light comes up quite often as a discard outlet, especially when we fill up our board with a few different Shikigami followers. There are a lot of times where you naturally draw into this card and discard it in the same turn, which is really, really great. And then worst case scenario, this is a pay to draw one, which feels fine. Triple Demon Caller. I like this card. We just want ways to control the board. We want Onmyoji followers and cards in our cemetery to help fuel the other cards as well. So this card is really good at being able to basically 2-for-1 while also providing a draw drop. We play 3 of the Evo. We maximize on the Evo because we don't have enough followers in this list to actually maximize on the 10 Evo slots. So we maximize every Evo we can. This becoming a 4/4 is an easy 2-for-1 essentially, as long as there's another follower on the board you can run your Shikigami into as well. But either way, card's very powerful. Anytime you get a paper Shikigami, you love it. The draw drop is so important in this list. Triple Merlin, we're playing Rune. We all know how good this card is and comes into play, search for a spell. A lot of times you either be looking for D-Shift, maybe Witch Bolt, Truce to Education, all great targets, or even a concentration for the heal and draw one. All of these are great cards to be searching out. Then we play 3 of the Evo, obviously, to maximize that. We can replay these really powerful 3-cost spells, get upwards of 6 healing off of a Merlin, which is really nice. It feels really good. You get the extra draw as well, Witch Bolt to answer some of the annoying things, which is really important in this list at times. Just Merlin is such a good, toolbox card. There's no reason not to be playing it. Cursed Crafter. This card actually gets restricted way later on. I don't know if it's going to get restricted early in the English meta. We'll see what happens, but you should be maximizing this card. It is actually insane. It's basically pay for, deal 4 damage to an enemy follower, and then draw a card, discard a card, which is huge. And then on Evo, it does 2 damage to an enemy follower, or deals another 4 if you have 7 spells or Onmyoji cards in your cemetery, which happens very quickly, which means this card can easily 3-for-1 your opponent really, really bad. You come into play, you crack the token you make, deal 4 damage somewhere, Evo this, deal another 4 damage somewhere, then swing this in for 3. This is kind of how you clear up some of those wide annoying boards once you get to like turn 5 and so forth. This card is insane, and there's a reason it was restricted, so you should be maxing this out as much as possible. All right, next here. Crimson Meteor Storm. This is kind of our AoE wipe spell. This is a really powerful spell in general because a lot of the time you will be able to play this for 5 play points because we will be able to get to the spell chain 10 usually quick enough. There are times though you have to be careful and understand the matchup to know whether you need to hurry up and get as many spells into the grave as soon as possible so you can play this on turn 5 for the board clear. The fact it deals 6 damage to your enemy's board means that most things will just be gone. There's not a lot of cards that really go over 6 health that you really have to worry about before turns like 6 and 7 and so forth. This also does deal 3 damage to the enemy leader, which helps us close out games that way, get some extra shift damage in. So when we get to our D-shift turn, we pop off and don't actually need as much damage as we might normally need if they're at 20 health. And then 2 dimension shift. I feel like 2 is more than enough. Honestly, a lot of the games you only need to play 1. I could only imagine ever needing the second one really if your opponent like pops off and like gets like 35 plus health. Maybe then it gets kind of awkward. But maybe at the same time you weren't really winning that game at the same time. It is kind of tough to play the second D-shift as well because honestly you're not going to always have 10 spells to banish to make this a 7 play point card, which means usually you have to win off of the first D-shift, which is really, really important. And then finally the main piece of the deck that makes it so busted is Kuon itself. It does say it's a 15 cost card, but a lot of the times this card is going to cost you only like 2 play points or less, a lot of times 0 as well. Usually by turn 7 or 8 you should be able to play this for 0 cost, and so a lot of times you'll like double Kuon to get double to get a Celestial Shikigami token, and then with your other cards have other Shikigami tokens on the board or Shikigami followers in general, give them Storm, swing in with those, cast D-shift, restand everything, swing in again, and you push a lot of damage. 1 Kuon with D-shift does push 13 damage by itself, as long as you're able to swing in with the Celestial Shikigami token and then, well, after giving it Storm, and then next turn you swing in with the 5 and 4 again. That doesn't also stop you from playing other cards on the turn after that, because you can swing again, do 13 damage, and then you've refilled your play points, which means you can come down with Merlin, search out Truth Abdication, deal 3 damage to your opponent, then Evo Merlin, and then deal 3 damage again to get in 6. That's 19 damage right there immediately. So if your opponent isn't basically at full health, you have the win after a D-shift turn in those scenarios where you're able to play Truth Abdication from hand, then Evo Merlin did play it from grave as well. You can just push a lot of damage that way. Otherwise, there are turns where you just play like Shikigami Summons along with Kuon, Traditional Sorcerer, things like that, even the Demon Caller. Get those guys out on the turn, you're going to D-shift, and then swing in like crazy with D-shift. It's such a powerful like kill turn. It's kind of like this is the deck. You have to be as good as Kuon or better to really compete in this meta, in my opinion, because Kuon is the deck that is the late game fit powerhouse of the meta. That's why usually turns 7, 8 are the roughest turns for a lot of decks, because if you can't really close out the game by then or before, Kuon is usually just the better late game deck. I don't know if there really is any other deck in this current meta I would consider like a better late game deck, but Kuon gets you there every time essentially. The fact that we have the board wipes, you can set up Kuon the following turn after a board wipe is really good. And the fact that you can essentially deal so much storm damage out of your hand with D-shift and with only one Kuon means that every additional follower on top of that makes your D-shift turns that much more insane. But yeah, that is the deck itself. You should really familiarize yourself with Kuon and D-shift in general for this meta. You need to understand the key turns it has when strategies to deal with this deck, because if you play into this deck and not really have a good game plan going into it, you will consistently lose on turn 6, 7, or 8 against your Kuon opponent, because they will just be outvaluing you, setting up their grave with all the spells and all the followers to get out the Kuons that cost nothing, and then D-shift you, and then you're just eating a ton of damage after that. But yeah, hopefully that explains the deck and you guys kind of have a great idea for how this deck should be played. Let me know below what you've been doing in your Kuon list. I feel like there's not a lot of real wiggle room you can do in Kuon. This here is kind of like the cookie cutter list that does not play Penguin. I think Penguin is an respectable choice if you want to play the Penguin in the list. If you think people are going to be playing around your early game very, very well, I think you just start putting in the Penguins. If you think people are going to be more aggressive, you're going to play against aggro decks more often, Penguin not as important. Penguin is only really good in the long grindy games where your opponent is playing very, very well and trying to deny you as much as possible, so you don't get a pop off on like turn 7 or 8 and you're forced to wait to like later turns than that to actually win the game. But besides that, like I said, really familiarize yourself with like the key turns of the deck and like their win condition, understand their power output and how much damage they can do off of a storm, go on and so forth. It's really important to know to be able to combat this deck, because there are ways you can play around this deck very well, and then the other times you just can't, because the way your deck is constructed, you're kind of forced to kind of fall into the Kuon's game plan, and hopefully they stumble more than you stumble. But yeah, with that being said, guys, hopefully you like the deck profile. Let me know what you guys been cooking with Kuon. I really want to know if there's anything spicy out there going on. Like I said, I don't think there's a lot of real wiggle room in these lists with Kuon to do your own like spicy thing. Essentially, I kind of think most of these lists are relatively figured out. Maybe 1 or 2 cards can be swapped around. But yeah, let me know. But if you like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. It helps a lot with the algorithm of YouTube and keeps me motivated to keep doing videos like this. With that being said, guys, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.